Support for this podcast comes from Invent Together. I bet you didn't know that inventing activity by Black inventors peaked in 1899, and it has never recovered. Black and Hispanic college graduates patented half the rate of white college graduates. That's just one of the reasons why you need to know about Invent Together. When our patent system gets more diverse, our nation will get stronger and more successful. Find out how you can help diverse inventors and unleash economic opportunity at inventtogether.org.
This episode is brought to you by Simply by Frito-Lay. You have enough on your plate, but now there's one less thing to overthink with Simply by Frito-Lay. It's your favorite Frito-Lay snacks with ingredients to feel good about, like Simply Blue Corn Tostitos, sea salted Ruffles, and white cheddar Cheetos Puffs. All made with no artificial flavors or colors. So enjoy what you love and look for Simply brand snacks online or at a store near you.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cape Town, a superhero podcast about superhero things. I'm Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Hannah Mezzell.
And I'm Ryan Hamm.
And okay, so this week we set a goal for ourselves to talk about the DC movies that we like. And I think the idea behind this was that we feel like it's true, given DC movies kind of a hard time on here. And then I think in turn, some people have given us kind of a hard time for like maybe feeling like we don't give enough credit to the DC movie universe. So I guess this is us going into our defensive posture to tell you that there are DC movies that we like. Actually, some DC movies that I like a whole lot. And we wanted to go just to a sort of a tour of the DC movie library, stopping at the ones that we actually think are really good. And so we brought a collection of those, and we will get to those. We do want to talk about a few little news items first. We're going to start by talking about the very strange Venom franchise, which is like expanding, evidently. The rights behind, I don't think we've ever I don't know how deep we need to get into the whole like legal conundrum that Venom is in right now, because it is a little complicated, and I don't know how actually interesting it is. But the short version is
Spider-Man?
Disney does not own the rights to Venom. Sony owns
let's not
the
get
rights
into that.
to Venom.
Oh, man.
So it's super boring. Basically, Venom cannot presently be in the MCU.
Because it's part of the Spider-Man thing, right?
Right.
But so they only have that agreement for Spider-Man, not any of the like Rogues Gallery.
No, there's like some sort of I think there's a list. It's probably just an Excel spreadsheet that the Sony execs and the Disney execs have access to.
Some hairy lawyers over there.
Yeah.
They divvied up the Spider-Man characters, and Venom fell into the Sony side of things. So Spider-Man, they get to share a little bit, Sony and Marvel, but there's other obviously Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson. And one really funny one is that Jessica Drew, who is Spider-Woman, Marvel gets to use Jessica Drew, but Sony gets to use Spider-Woman, even though they're the same character, but they can't be called by those names in their respective movies. So it's just it's messed up. But Venom gets his own franchise, and he's supposed to be, I think, the pillar of Sony's burgeoning Spider-Man without Spider-Man verse.
Yeah.
And they released that Venom movie. And Hannah, we found out that you were the only one who actually saw it.
Which is truly surprising. You can thank my husband for that. He definitely he pushed that one pretty hard. But very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I thought it was definitely unlike the DC movies, unlike the Marvel movies, kind of in a league all of its own in terms of mood and tone. It's been a while.
What would you compare it to? Was it like a Deadpool thing or a...
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably closer to a Deadpool, but very different style. Very different style of humor than Deadpool, obviously. Like what do they call it? Breaking the fourth wall.
Fourth wall.
The fourth wall, thank you. One of those. They I don't think it's quite as playful, but it's definitely... It's violent. I don't remember too much. I hate that I didn't watch it more recently. I think that it is a good space to occupy for Sony. I think it's a smart move because it's offering the audience something very different than what the MCU does and then whatever DC has been trying to do. Sorry. I like it, and we just watched the trailer for the sequel, and it looks like it's kind of following, and it's predecessor's footsteps there. So I think it'll be just as good. I mean, who's the director?
Did they get Ruben Fleischer back for round 2? I think they did round 1. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Potentially Ruben Fleischer is directing Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. And the trailer came out this week. Woody Harrelson, who is great and a great casting.
No, it's directed by Andy Serkis.
Oh.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm surprised that I didn't know that. I'm sure I heard
We
that at
all
some
just
point.
found that out right now.
Yeah, that's it. Is this his directorial debut?
No, I think he's directed something else.
He was he made his directorial debut for Breathe. Oh yeah, that's right. He directed that Mowgli movie.
Oh, that's right. The
That was like very much CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah, the not Jungle Book movie.
Right. Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
He's had an interesting career coming for him here. I wonder
I'm an
what
Andy
his
Serkis
pitch
fan.
was like.
Yeah.
I like Andy Serkis. I have not seen any of his directorial oeuvre, so I don't know if I can speak to that.
No.
Yeah.
But I liked the trailer. I liked the opening 30 seconds with the breakfast thing quite a bit. And if it has that energy, then I could be down for that. That was funny.
Yeah. It did feel very high energy. I think with Andy Serkis doing it, he's someone who understands, CGI and all those things probably better than any other performer would. So I think in a movie like Venom, where you're really relying a lot on CGI and special effects, having someone who understands that can use it really well. And that was definitely the case in the first movie. So you all should watch it. I can't believe that you haven't seen it.
I probably will.
I think you'll enjoy it. I'm not.
Okay.
I think you'll both be pleasantly surprised.
I've heard mostly good things, measured good things about it. I feel like, and I think it's mostly what you said, Hannah. It was mostly people who were like, I thought I was going to hate it, and I didn't hate it. I actually kind of liked it. That's great.
Tyler, you've read a lot of Venom, I think, right?
Well, he's kind of had a resurgence in the comics.
Because I know you like Donny Cates a lot,
right?
So
I do.
I assume you've read some of his run.
So it's coming to an end in 2 months, I believe.
Okay.
Venom 50 will be the end of Donny Cates' run on Venom. So Donny Cates is kind of this new-ish, kind of golden boy for Marvel, who's become a very popular writer very quickly. And he, more than most writers over there, he's a little bit younger, and he feels like he really came of age in the 90s era of comics, and he does a really good job of taking the comics that he grew up on, which were the kind of 90s edgelord characters like Venom and Wolverine, and making them actually really interesting and really fun because he's actually a good writer, but he finds a way to modernize that aesthetic in really fun, interesting ways. So he makes Eddie Brock, the guy who started out as a major Spider-Man villain, a very believable and even very tragic figure. Gives him a son early on that he didn't know that he had. So it becomes a father-son tale through most of it, and does a lot of work exploring the symbiote. Where does it actually come from? What is the symbiote? And he explores this whole planet of the symbiotes and this sort of ancient deity who's the god of all the symbiotes, who comes to Earth and was the source of the big bad behind the big crossover event last summer. And I thought it was all actually handled really, really well. I enjoyed it a lot. And this is somebody who is a hardcore Venom skeptic. I got won over by it. I liked it a lot.
So is it hard sci-fi?
Very. Yeah.
Yeah.
It becomes very
cool.
cosmic. There's a lot of
sounds
space
great.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cosmic traveling through the cosmos.
So do you think there's enough in that series or elsewhere to kind of carry Sony's Venom verse?
I think that they would need the Venom series where it kind of ended up going would need a Peter Jackson director and budget behind it, because it does become this very big cosmic war by the end of it. And that isn't
Peter Jackson though, his practical effects. Oh my god,
it would be super cool. I just don't know that either Sony
noted
or Peter
director
Jackson.
of the Hobbit trilogy
and the Lord of the Rings,
or a James
Lord
Cameron. It would it became very epic and sweeping in scope, which so far does not seem like the direction these are going, because they're trying to get this Morbius movie off the ground, which would be the next character, and they're growing, and that just got bumped down the road again a little bit. I don't know how that's going to go.
I do
So I
love
don't
that they're
know.
like leaning into this like 90s extreme universe. I'm hoping for this is like the Papa Roach resurgence for movie soundtracks.
Oh my gosh! Can you
Papa Roach
imagine
and
some Chad
Evanescence
Kroger
back.
on there?
Yeah, exactly.
Get some more. Get them some
Chad
work.
Kroger. Yeah.
Avril Lavigne doing a slow, pretty song in the middle,
Yeah.
and then Chad
Well, you
comes
can't
in.
have Chad
yeah.
Kroger and Avril Lavigne in the same soundtrack. They're
That's
divorced.
true.
I think
Fine.
that's true.
They're
That's not right.
grown-ups. They're adults. I'm sure they can have a professional relationship.
I do feel like though that no, he's not. He's too soft for Venom. You need to get someone, like Andrew WK.
Yeah.
Disturbed. Also, speaking of people who got married off this weekend, Andrew WK got engaged to Kat Dennings. I didn't even know that.
Darcy.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, to the happy couple.
Yeah.
So great. I just have to say, music is worth living for. Okay. That's just for people who love Andrew WK. Okay. Anyway, I think that if Carnage is like, Venom, I don't even know what's the title of it?
Let There Be Carnage.
Let There Be Carnage.
Love it.
I feel like they leaned into a very niche kind of slice right there with the style and of the first movie. And I think Tom Hardy did a really good job of kind of playing a character who's like, dude, why do you keep doing this? Like he's a very flawed and kind of a frustrating person, but you like him enough that you enjoy the movie.
Okay.
So I think they towed that line of
cool.
like imperfect character, but not so imperfect that you just like don't want to see him self-destruct or something like that, So I'm obviously one trailer kind of teaser. Yeah. But you guys should at least start with the first and just enjoy it. It's just kind of weird and out there.
All right.
Yeah.
The only other real piece of news in the movie situation that happened this week was we got a first clip of Black Widow. And something that has been interesting about the Black Widow marketing, which I don't know if Marvel has done this before, is they have not revealed. So Taskmaster is the villain in this one, who's sort of this kind of a B-level supervillain in the comics, who has a pretty strong fan following, but is not a well-known bad guy at all. But he's this mercenary for hire. His gimmick is that he has photographic reflexes, so anybody he watches fight, he can copy their fighting style. That's kind of his thing. But we don't know who's playing him in this movie. They have not announced who the actor is. So I don't know if that means it's going to be a big reveal, somebody we've already met in the MCU, or if they got some sort of like big star that they're excited to show us who it is. They have not said yet. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Black Widow generally. The cast is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rachel Weisz.
Wouldn't it be funny
Florence
if it was
Pugh.
just like no one? He's like a stunt double.
Yeah. the mask comes off and it's just I have no idea who this is.
I respect the stunt doubles though. You guys do hard work. No offense to you. It'd just be funny for Tyler.
Good point.
The only reason they have announced the actor is because nobody can find his name. Who was that guy?
They're scrolling through IMDb. Was his name
Solid
Jimmy
stunt double.
or Johnny?
We got to pay him. There's got to be a pay stub somewhere.
Yeah, I am super stoked about that. Are you guys going to see it in theaters? You're watching it at home because I think they're going to do the Disney Plus release of that one, right?
Oh,
I think it'll be my big return to the theater. It's going to be my grand.
I think so too.
Grand re-entry. I'm excited.
I returned to the theater 2 weeks ago to see Mortal Kombat, which obviously was a cinematic achievement. Mostly, my brother and I embarrassed my wife because we were dying laughing at every single line delivery because it was all extremely funny.
Kate went with you willingly?
Oh yeah, willingly, yeah. Yeah,
Sweet
she
lady.
was a good sport. Yeah,
Excellent.
But yeah, I'm excited to see all these movies in theaters. I will be going to the movie theater as often as I can possibly do so this summer.
I miss it.
It made me.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, and I am excited about Black Widow. I think there was a light tease from David Harbour, who is playing this character called the Red Guardian, who's kind of the Russian.
Is he not KG Beast or KG Beast?
KG Beast is DC
Oh,
character.
Okay.
He's a Batman bad guy. The Red Guardian is like the Russia's attempt at a Captain America, like the commie Captain America.
I've been
Ooh.
exposed.
and Dave Harbour is playing him. And he lightly teased on Instagram this week that they may also be including the Russian Avengers, which are called the Red Guard, and include this extremely awesome character called his name is Ursa Major, and he is a talking alcoholic bear who is kind of their Hulk character. And I don't know if Marvel will be brave enough to like include him in this Black Widow movie, but I hope to God that he just always drunk on vodka, like very much a Russian stereotype with like tons of vodka shots. And I don't know that. I think he's actually
like
just
his
a
Dark
mutant.
Materials.
Yeah, I think he's actually just supposed to be a mutant in the movies. Like his mutant power is that he's just a bear. Everybody's got to have something.
See,
that's his thing.
I think something really interesting with Black Widow is like because it's a prequel. I mean, I guess we had Captain Marvel was kind of set earlier too, right? But
True. Yeah,
this is one of those, Tyler. To your point, we don't know who Taskmaster is, and I feel like they actually have the opportunity. Like, I don't know if Taskmaster is going to die, because we know that Black Widow eventually dies, but we have no idea what the villain does, and everyone kind of assumes that Florence Pugh is going to become the new Black Widow, but
which is
maybe
seems
Taskmaster
like a possibility.
Maybe Taskmaster is Tom Cruise, and he signed like a 9-picture deal.
Yeah, and they're going to launch the Taskmaster verse.
Oh man, except it crosses over with Mission Impossible. Now we're talking.
The crossover we deserve. The Fast Furious, Mission Impossible, Knives Out, MCU crossover that we all deserve.
That was a lot. See, I was thinking, with David Harbour being from Stranger Things, the Stranger Things crossover. Because if you guys watch it, sorry for spoilers, people, but here it is. He like the end of last season, he's just like in Russia.
Yeah, he does end up in a Russian prison camp.
This is a coincidence, people.
In the Gulag, yeah. Oh man, it's all right there. It's all right.
They could explain anything with the multiverse. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be great. We'll be in the theater. We'll be stuffing our face with popcorn and just like super pumped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got those. Every theater has those easy chairs now.
So you can like you have the buttons where you can like recline and go back.
It's incredible.
I haven't been in one in a long time.
Oh man,
there's not enough popcorn in America.
Oh,
for what I'm going to do to those popcorn. So that's Marvel movies. Yeah, it's going to be illegal.
Yeah. So many refills of that big bucket, you don't even know.
So that's Marvel, but we are going to talk about DC. DC has been, I think, since we started this podcast, DC has definitely struggled a lot with trying to go toe to toe with the MCU. The last episode, if you didn't listen to it, was a brief sort of breakdown of the Snyder Cut and Zack Snyder's very sometimes very tragic, sometimes very funny, sometimes very bad, and sometimes genuinely moving, I think, story of him trying to get this DC franchise off the ground, especially his magnum opus, the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. So if you want to hear more about Snyder, we did cover that in detail in the last episode. This one is going to be a little more scattershot. We're just going to kind of jump across to a bunch of DC movies. Because I think it's easy to forget now, because I don't think there's really ever been a franchise quite like the MCU, which has been this dominant. But there was a time when DC movies were far and away the like on top of the superhero movie game.
They had an earlier start.
In like recent history, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, people remember the Nolan movies, but all the way back with Richard Donner and Superman, they really kicked off the superhero movie thing at a time when it's really hard to imagine for us now. I think what a risk that would have been to do a big budget superhero movie out of something that was still at the time seen even more than it is now. It's very much this unserious kids medium.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like
Ryan, I rewatched the first Superman movie this week, and I know you did too. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts coming out of it?
It's interesting because watching like the Donner Superman movies, like it doesn't remind me of a superhero movie as much as it does remind me of like the early Star Trek films, and even like to a lesser extent A New Hope. Like it's clear that all those movies and filmmakers and obviously composers are kind of all playing in the same water. And like I think that's what's interesting is like the special effects aren't there, but the like kind of the feeling is. So yeah, it actually
it's very
honestly. Superman the movie reminds me the most of Star Trek the motion picture, like the first Star Trek, where it's like it's like super cool, but like also kind of boring.
Yeah. I can
But
see that. It's not as like splashy as what we're used to
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Things are more subtle.
It does have. You forget. I'd forgotten that Superman doesn't really show up until like well over halfway through the movie. It's mostly a Clark Kent story for the first like what, probably 45 minutes.
Yeah,
at
45
least.
minutes.
When he does make his appearance with the very famous helicopter malfunction scene with Lois Lane in it. It's actually, I think, of an extremely well directed scene, a great superhero reveal moment, which is helped hugely by the John Williams score, which is just terrific, and it starts playing and Christopher Reeves.
That score gives you chills.
Yeah,
It's really perfect. It's probably the best superhero score still now that we've got. It's really, really good. And Christopher Reeves really nails, in a way I don't think any other live action Superman has, he's almost a dork. Like he is not he feels more like Mr. Rogers than he does like he's so friendly that Lois Lane asks like, "Who are you?" And he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm Superman." He just says, "I'm a friend." It's very sweet, but it does not come across in any way like what we think of superhero material now. But it works. I think it really does. It does work. I enjoy it a lot. It's a very cool scene.
And physically, I think Christopher Reeve did an incredible job of like the transition from Clark Kent to Superman. Like every scene with Clark Kent, he sort of like hunches over his shoulders and he's like very demure and sort of like stares at the ground. And then every scene is Superman, he's got his shoulders back, he's standing broad-chested. It's like he just projects this air of confidence that's not there when he's Clark Kent. And it's just like, it's really interesting to see the other actors play off of him too, particularly Margot Kidder.
I love Margot Kidder. I haven't seen this
best.
one in a couple of years actually, but I do love this film. I can't remember, but did he kind of like play like as a little bit clumsy as like Clark? That was kind of part of like the shtick. Like I kind of remember him like dropping things, just kind of like totally like, I don't. It was
almost like Buster Keaton type, like physical comedy. He's like the heroine in a rom com, or like, oh, such a klutz ball, oops a daisies. but it works. You can almost believe that nobody can figure out that he's actually Superman. It's still a little strange when they get close to his face, but it's a little more believable just on the strength of Reeves' performance.
Yeah. And I mean, every Superman movie, Lex Luthor's plan makes absolutely zero sense. But Gene Hackman really tries. Gene Hackman really tries to sell it from his underground lair.
I love Gene Hackman.
Oh yeah,
he is one of my favorite actors of all time. Him and Tom Wilkinson. Oh yes, they're so good. He plays like a really good villain. He's very, I don't know. He's like very charismatic, and you just kind of like buy into whatever he's saying, and you have to like watch, and you have to listen to every word whenever he speaks. But him, and I wanted to ask you what you thought of the villains, because they have like two really good actors. They have Gene Hackman, they have Terrence Stamp, which, we were talking before we started, recording this about like some of those like really upper echelon actors that they've gotten in the MCU, like Sir Ben Kingsley and a few others. And I feel like Terrence Stamp is kind of like that win in this movie. Oh man. And then Gene Hackman too. They're just powerhouses. You have to watch them when they're on screen. Can't look away.
And I mean, Terrence Stamp is great, but they also have Marlon Brando, which is like, I feel like is the pinnacle of that, right? Like, I mean, that was basically, I think that was like not that long after The Godfather. So it's just wild that, it's like,
he's in this movie?
We got Don Corleone and in the Superman movie to deliver these extremely hammy monologues about what it means to be Kryptonian.
I wonder what the pitch was at the time, even, because it really is hard to imagine them going to adults and saying, we want to dress you up in this, and you're going to like fly around. And for them to just not be like, Christopher Reeves, not a super well-known actor at the time. He was kind of plucked from obscurity for this and obviously nailed the role. He was the right guy for the part. and I guess the money they saved on him, they probably could use to get people like Brando. And then in the next one, I would imagine the budget went up quite a bit. I think the first one's quite a bit better. But you do have the Kneel Before Zod stuff that comes in. I think the action is actually a little bit better in the sequel too.
Yeah, for sure.
It moves a little bit faster.
It is interesting, like, and I'd kind of forgotten this until I was thinking about it as I was watching it. Like, there was that. I mean, my family were big Nick at Night fans, which I don't know if other people's were.
Oh, ditto. Yeah.
Yeah, but
sure.
I don't know if you guys remember the old Adventures of Superman movie. It was like an old, like from the 50s.
Series?
Yeah, it was like a
series,
a TV
right?
series. Yeah, and it was black and white, and then it turned color.
It was George Reeves was the name of that.
Yeah,
right?
George. Yeah,
no relation, but
no relations. Yeah, but so it is interesting that like maybe the sell was a little bit easier then because Superman was so like immersed in the American consciousness because they'd just come off of essentially like a decade-long TV show. 10 years before they'd started filming this. So maybe that was a little bit easier. It would be like us pitching a Frasier movie to someone. And
well, and they're also probably the most recent superhero phenomenon in the tank at that point was they're about 20 years removed from the Batman TV show at that point.
Right.
If I remember right. Maybe not even less than that, probably 15
I think it
years
was
from the
less than
Batman
that.
show.
Yeah, it came out in 78, Superman movie.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean that's only
not
only 12 years after the Batman movie too.
But the Batman show was like, obviously very campy and silly and sort of owned its weirdness. And Donner really pitched Superman as I wouldn't call it serious. It's not a serious movie, but it's a very earnest movie, which suits the character very well. It worked for that. I don't think you could do a campy Superman movie, or at least that's not something I'd be super interested in from a Superman movie.
Yeah.
And then after that, the Superman franchise took a pretty quick turn downhill. And just disappointing box office returns, including the Richard Pryor one, which should be seen because it's so strange, but it's not good.
And I'm actually here to
bad
fight
movie.
for Superman 3 because I watched this one recently as well. To be clear, it's not good, but it is very fun.
But it's not Justice League bad.
Right. It's not Justice League bad because it's not
entertaining.
like... Yeah, it's not like ponderous. It's sort of just, you know what it reminds me the most of is actually like the first probably 2/3 of Wonder Woman 84, where it's just like, this is the most unhinged movie I've ever seen. And I can't believe like what's unspooling on my television. And that's what Superman 3 reminds me of because it's got everything. It's like, Richard Pryor is a computer hacker. He's making tornadoes. Superman like literally battles his super ego. It's incredible. It's great.
That part sounds cool.
Yeah.
Isn't there a part? It's kind of like burned into my memory where a lady gets turned into a robot.
Yeah, so they build a huge
it's very
supercomputer in
freaky.
a desert.
Yeah.
And she gets sucked into a computer closet and turned into an android, and then she starts shooting stuff.
Creeped me way out when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember
I
much
do
of that
need to
movie.
see that.
Yeah.
It's
a great time.
I'm sold.
Yeah, so
Tomorrow
it's basically like the tone of Wonder Woman 84's first 2/3 before it turns into like before they really try to like make Wonder Woman like 84 mean something. So it's basically like it's like that, but without the lesson. So it's great. The whole thing is just completely unhinged. It's awesome.
Gal Gadot's history of going serious, I would say, is checkered at this point.
Yeah, it's not the best.
An uneven legacy.
Yes.
So then we come to the Tim Burton Batman movies. And I wanted to read before we got going on this. I've came across a list of the actors who are all, and this is a list of actors who are in serious consideration for Batman before it obviously went to Keaton. And so these are the people that Burton was interested in, and most of these, what I could find is that most of these people actually read for it. I don't know what most is, and I don't know which ones, but they said most of these characters read for it at some point.
Okay.
Tom Cruise, Daniel Day-Lewis, Kurt Russell, Johnny Depp, Alec Baldwin, Pierce Brosnan, Charlie Sheen, Harrison Ford, Kevin Costner, and this is true, Bill Murray. We're all in the hat at one point.
Man, that is
Before
a
the role
list.
finally went to Keaton. And I don't know if they turned it down. Like, I don't know if any of that, like, I don't know if the role part was offered to anybody. I do know that Keaton at the time was considered a very strange pick. He was mostly known for comedy at that point. And I think fans who were kind of excited that this would be a dark, serious Batman movie were worried that Michael Keaton's casting would mean it was going to be another, like a rehash of the 1960s TV show, that they were going to go for a very funny route again. But instead, what we got was the Batman movie, which became an enormous blockbuster at the time. It was the highest grossing summer movie at that time of any movie ever. And that one I popped in again too this week. Ryan, you did a little rewatch of the Burtons, right?
Yeah, I watched it. I hadn't seen it in probably like 15 years.
Yeah.
So it was fun to go back.
Fun fact: that movie is as old as I am.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah,
Because it came out 89.
89.
What do you think of
Yeah.
it? What's your memory of this movie? Like, do you remember when you first saw this movie?
I remember my brothers watching it, who are respectively 3 and almost 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of movies like in the periphery, like where I wasn't really allowed to watch them, and I was like peeking behind a wall and, trying to see what was happening. For whatever reason, the first Batman movie was not very memorable to me, probably just because of my nubile, childish mind. Like, there's certain things that just didn't like.
It's a tough one for kids, I think. It is a little, it's not super child friendly. My parents wouldn't let me watch it.
No, none of those
I wasn't allowed
are.
to watch it either. I have a very vivid
I was so
memory.
mad about it because I wanted
me
to
too.
watch it. So
I had a Batman sweatshirt, but I wasn't allowed to watch the movie.
oh yeah, I had stuff. I think I had a Batman bedspread or something.
Yeah.
Like, I had all the gear,
Yeah.
but I did not.
I have this very
had not seen
vivid
it. I was a
memory
fake
of
fan.
being. I have a very vivid memory of being at my grandparents' house, like for a Christmas celebration, and my uncle, who had just seen it, like coming and telling me like all the scenes that were really cool. Like, I remember him very like vividly telling me about that scene where he like tells the Batmobile to like put shields up, and it like, all the shields kind of go up. And just thinking, like, I was 5 and just being like, that sounds so cool. Just like being so sad that my parents wouldn't let me see it.
I have like a bad hot take on it, and this makes me sound like a freaking millennial, but whatever.
I can't wait.
I was really bored watching that movie. Like, I didn't watch it this week, but I watched it like a year ago with my husband. And we both got like halfway through it. We're like, I recognized when this was like a good movie, and like how it was like a big deal when it was released back in 1989. But I was quite bored watching Batman.
Yeah.
Just maybe hasn't aged. I get that.
I don't think it has.
Yeah. I think that's kind of fair. I mean, I think as I was rewatching it this time, I actually think it's a much better movie before Jack becomes Joker. Weirdly enough, like, I think Jack Nicholson's menace kind of like gets overshadowed by the like kind of campy, campy version of Joker that he plays.
Totally agree.
Like, I think there's some cool other parts too, but I mean, I also think that, as I was rewatching, it struck me that Keaton's Batman is for sure the one who most resembles kind of the comic books detective side of Batman.
Yes.
And I think that's probably, like, there's a reason why films don't lean in on that, because it's not terribly exciting to watch a dude sit in front of a huge bank of computers.
No, not really.
Just, like, thinking. There's a few very good shots in there. Like, there are some really like memorable, and the costume doesn't look too bad, all things considered. It's pretty rubbery, but it looks like something from the art at that time. It really like, and they really just went for it.
Are we going to lump Batman Returns into the same conversation?
We got to talk about Batman Returns. It's a different. That movie is unhinged.
That movie is.
Yeah,
I have some thoughts on that one.
No chill.
Well, I think
for Batman Returns.
I mean, this is another one my parents wouldn't let me see, and as an adult,
sure.
I'm just like, there's good reason for that, because it is like insanely violent.
It's also cringy. It's like very cringy in certain scenes.
Messy. Yeah.
Watching it in 2021, there's some weird sexual stuff in there that, like,
very weird,
penguin.
very weird sexuality going on there.
Yeah,
That
it's very uncomfortable.
It's not. there's a reason it doesn't come up a whole lot, I think.
Yeah.
You have two really great performances with Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer, who are both really good and just eat their roles alive.
Yeah,
but they still say really cringy stuff.
Yes, I'm not arguing against it. I think the performances
I know, because
are good.
I always remember their performance. My memory of Batman Returns was like, oh yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer looked hot. She was like that costume, and I loved like Christopher Walken was Christopher Walken, I guess.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his weird character, Shrek. It's where the Shrek story actually originates.
Yeah,
Straight.
exactly.
No, I was kidding. That'd be funny though.
It was. Definitely cringe.
I like certain parts.
I would say problematic dialogue. It feels like, I think I said this to you, Ryan. It feels like mostly a Tim Burton movie that happens to have Batman characters in it. It's very much. It's coasting on that Edward Scissorhands energy.
Yeah.
Because my wife asked me how it was as I was watching it, and I was like, honestly, it's like a Tim Burton fever dream. I was like, it has everything. I was like, it's got like the Sideshow Freak Show. I was like, it's got the depraved circus. I was like, it's got weird music. It's got like the problematic father-son relationship. I was like, it really hits all the buttons. Like everything about Tim Burton is here.
Yeah. See, my cringe really came down to like them making certain scenes very sexual that I felt like they didn't ever need to be like that. There was this, in particular, there was a scene where the Penguin is putting a pin on a young woman who's like, because he's going to run for mayor. And he puts a pin on her and he fondles her boob. And like, not like subtly, like he's like, like grunting while he does it.
Yeah.
And like, ooh, it was
Yeah.
so gross. I just felt dirty.
He's
I
the
didn't like that.
grossest character I've ever seen in a movie.
He really,
He is.
Yeah.
I just think they could have made him gross without that aspect
for
thrown
sure.
into it. Like they could, like he was gross, like eating a fish and like the spit all coming out of his mouth. Like it was all very
the
visceral.
teeth, the weird.
And it was very
yeah.
effective. I think you could have just made him like a gross character because like he eats raw fish and he, lives in the sewer and he's got sinister plans. Like that was enough. You didn't have to make him a sexual pervert.
A penguin army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did forget that the entire movie is predicated on the idea that, like Moses, his parents sent him in a bassinet down the river, and he was
Very blatant.
literally raised by penguins.
Very blatant. Yeah.
I'm so sad they didn't show that because I was like, oh
Yeah, I
yes,
know.
please let's like see the penguins take him out of the basket.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because I was
feed
trying
him
to
a
figure out,
bottle.
I was like, how
What
would
do
that
they do?
work?
It's not like Tarzan.
don't wanna
They don't
know.
have like they don't have appendages.
Right, exactly. But I was just like, do you think
Too
he
gross to
ate like
contemplate.
regurgitated like fish his whole
From
life?
the beak.
Yeah, that's gross.
It's so gross.
Yeah. Anyway, these are my stray thoughts about Batman Returns, which I actually like kind of enjoy.
Yeah,
despite it
I
being
think
cringy,
there are
but-
going to be things you enjoy about that movie. Like the first 15 minutes, you don't even see Batman. You're just kind of in this weird Gotham world that's very much like totally a Tim Burton universe.
Yeah.
Not
I really
a light
like that
to be
about those
found.
movies. How much of
Yeah.
a place Gotham feels like. Like Gotham
Yes.
it's a Tim Burton world for sure. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
like goth Dr. Seuss kind of.
Yeah,
but
it's a
I think
Gothic
that-
Art Deco.
But I
Yeah.
think that works for the world a lot because it's a world where you can believe that people would decide to just dress up like bats to fight crime. It doesn't seem like
Well-
it would be all that strange.
And I think I'd forgotten too how much the animated series owed to those movies.
That's really true. Yeah.
Like with even down to the Danny Elfman score, which I'd forgotten was in the movie before the TV or before the animated series. Like that Batman overture, I know we just like John Williams' score for Superman is obviously the most, I think, iconic from any of these movies. But
Yeah.
I would say like Danny Elfman's Batman, like overture is kind of the second. I would probably say for these.
So good. In fact, if you
yeah.
look at my camera, I have Love the Batman's the original.
Yeah,
Batman
there we
score.
go. Yeah,
It was my
great.
That's
first.
part of my
It was my
notes. That
first
was so
Batman
good.
score.
Yeah,
For sure. And
It's very
I've liked
theatrical.
I like Hans Zimmer's Batman for the Nolan movies, and I'm excited to see what comes out with this Matt Reeves
Yeah.
one. But that was my first, the Danny Elfman one in the animated series, which we will do a episode on the animated series at some point, but that's kind of its own thing. We'll get to that. We're obviously all fans of it.
Yeah, because it's too precious to.
So, did you guys know that Burton was going to do a third Batman movie? That that was the plan, and he had even set up. He had cast Marlon Wayans as Dick Grayson to come in as Robin, and Harvey Dent, who is who is the god Lando Calrissian in Batman Returns, was going to have a Two-Face origin story, and WB just pulled the plug after Batman Returns, which did okay. Didn't do great numbers, but it did all right at the box office. But I think they just felt like he was out to lunch. He was doing his own thing.
And so I read that they were going to do a Catwoman spinoff too.
I hadn't heard that. But that makes
so they were originally going to do a Catwoman movie with Michelle Pfeiffer, and eventually that turned into the Halle Berry movie.
That is not going to that is not going to come up in the DC movies we like episode. Unfortunately,
I do love Halle Berry though. I just feel like she.
Nothing against Halle.
Fire your agent.
Yeah,
Halle.
Yeah,
she needs a good movie. I'm ready. She's ready for her to get a good movie.
Yeah. So I was reading about like the potential third one, and apparently in the original script for Batman Returns because they switched screenwriters a couple of times to like clean a few things up. And apparently in the original script, Catwoman gives Harvey Dent like a kiss, quote unquote, with the taser that she has, and that is what burns half his face off. So that kind of sets him up then for the third movie and
they just decided that wasn't going to work.
Yeah. So because they basically were like, we have too many characters, so.
There's always room for Billy D in a movie.
Yeah, I know.
It's also weird to think about like today what a big deal that would be considered to be to cast black actors for two very iconic characters. And I don't think there wasn't any sort of like social media presence that was asking for this. And I think it speaks well of Tim Burton, a director not known for racial diversity in his movies by any stretch of the imagination. That was at least part of the plan, and it was the studio that ultimately said no to those things. Marlon Wayans still got a paycheck for Batman Forever because he'd signed up for it.
It is wild to think about Marlon Wayans being in a Batman movie, though.
I really
as Robin.
Picture it.
Yeah, as Robin. So apparently he even did a like costume like fitting and everything.
The suit
too.
exists.
But just like the idea of Marlon Wayans in a Tim Burton movie, and then B, Marlon Wayans in a Tim Burton Batman movie. Both of those have to be some of the big what ifs of his
career went a different direction. And there was justice for Billy D because he did voice Two-Face in the Batman Lego movie. So it
did he really?
Around. Yeah,
it's a good callback.
That's a great story.
Yeah. I was going to mention, too, they just announced, I think a couple months ago, that they're actually continuing the story from Batman 89 in a series of comic books written by the original writer starting in July. So I'll be curious to check those out.
I will, too. That's a cool way to... They released some of the art, and it's just very much... It's Michael Keaton in a comic book suit. It's wild. I'm excited to see where they go with it.
It's so funny because like Michael, like I don't know if you guys ever watched Multiplicity or any of the old comedy stuff.
Course.
Mr. Mom.
Oh, just so many good little gems. And so but he really pulled off that the dramatic character actually very well. I think one thing that they've done consistently. I mean, I think that people have there's been some differing opinions on George Clooney. But I think that both Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer made very good Batman and very good Bruce Waynes. Let's
talk about Forever a little bit. Let's talk about Val Kilmer's Batman movie. This was a tonal shift, I would say.
Yes, majorly.
Yes, a little bit.
It goes to a different level. It's hard to know how to describe. It feels like they gave, which I guess they kind of did, like a musical theater kid a Batman movie. It's just all set up for like a stage. It's filmed like a stage play.
Yeah,
you have
Baz Luhrmann style.
Almost like a Moulin Rouge situation. You have to expect to see an audience out there. You've got directed by Joel Schumacher. Chris O'Donnell was Robin in this one. And then they had really good cast. Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face and Jim Carrey as the Riddler in this one. And they decided to go with Val Kilmer to be the next Batman and Nicole Kidman as the amazingly named Dr. Chase Meridian, the extremely hot psychologist character.
Yeah.
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 What do we think about this
She is
movie?
hot. Well, that was my first note, was that Nicole Kidman looked really hot.
Yeah.
What she did.
I saw this movie when I was
Speaking of
13.
extremely sexual, just like Catwoman, she is
Yeah.
like she is always trying she is always trying to have sex with Batman very obliquely in every scene.
Yeah. And
And
I saw
Nicole
this
Kidman just
movie-
goes for it. She just owns
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I guess that's my role. That's what I'm here to.
I'm here to
lives it
seduce
up.
Batman
Yeah.
unsuccessfully.
And I saw this movie for the first time when I was 13, and I can assure you Nicole Kidman's performance worked. Because that was...
She is extremely
You and many
memorable
other
when you're
13-year-old
13 years
boys.
old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At that age, it's a very memorable performance. And
Yeah.
it worked for me when I was that age.
Yeah. But
I remember
beyond
that
Nicole
better than
Kidman, I
Batman.
mean... Yeah. Well, and when I was 13, I mean, like, Jim Carrey is the Riddler. I mean, forget about it. That was incredible. I thought it was hilarious.
I liked his performance as the Riddler it's good. I think it fits the Riddler and his just antics totally. What's funny is watching all these let me back it up. I think that with the villains in those movies, I guess stemming from the first Batman with Michael Keaton, is that I think all of their villains are like a little too psychotic. That was like another takeaway I had. They're all a little too crazy. Obviously Arkham Asylum is like a big part of the Batman world. So like taking people from the loony bin and making a story out of it is pretty normal. But I just felt like that was one issue they've had like consistently is like they like until like the Nolan films, which we'll get to later. Like I felt like those villains were all like a little too childish kind of behaving, like in particular Tommy Lee Jones, like, which first of all, you're only used to seeing Tommy Lee Jones like a grumpy old man. Like this was like the one role he's ever acting kind of, at least I've seen.
It's the ultimate how did they talk Tommy Lee Jones, the ultimate how did they talk this actor into doing this, more than any other superhero movie, maybe more than any other movie. Why did Tommy Lee Jones?
I gotta know why he.
What happened there? Yes. Did he think it was going to be a different movie? Was he confused?
but like even if he was confused, he decided when he was going to act. He's like, I'm just gonna. All right, you want me to act like a psycho? I'll act like a psycho, and he did it. Like he I was just watching it.
There's this excellent story that Jim Carrey tells about showing up on set, and he's very excited to work with Tommy Lee Jones because evidently he's a very big fan. And I think at this time, Jim Carrey is still kind of fighting to be seen as Jim Carrey, serious actor, instead of the Dumb and Dumber guy. And he's kind of like, well, this is my chance. I can work with Tommy Lee Jones and earn some respect. And Tommy Lee Jones doesn't recognize him, doesn't give him the time of day, until finally one night they're out at dinner and he sees that Tommy is there as well. And he goes up to him and he says, hey, can I sit here? And and this is Jim Carrey's account of this. So this is him saying this, but he said, and Tommy Lee Jones said to me, I'm sorry. I don't want to talk to you. I just really hate you. I just really hate your work. And Jim Carrey's kind of taken aback and he says, what? And he says, and I remember this very clearly because it's an excellent phrase. He said, Tommy Lee Jones said, I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
Oh man.
Which for Tommy Lee Jones to have the sand to say that when he's given the performance he gave as Two-Face in that movie,
seriously.
which talk about buffoonery, he is dialed up to 12 that entire movie. There's no subtlety. Jim Carrey comes across as a little quiet next to Tommy Lee Jones.
I know. That's what's funny. Like Jim Carrey almost seems like restrained in some way in his performance.
Yeah.
And Tommy Lee Jones just like, I think he actually was going crazy when he filmed that maybe. Like it was such a test to his
maybe he was trying to act himself
something.
out of a job. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'd forgotten he worked with Joel Schumacher like a couple of years prior on The Client. So maybe Joel Schumacher was like, I've got another Grisham novel lined up. It's called Batman Forever.
I don't think people were ready for that movie to be what it was. Like, it's not what people were going to for a Batman movie in 1994.
Well, except it was like the biggest movie though.
It did really well. Yeah, it did really well. But the reviews were bad
everywhere, right?
And I think it's remembered pretty poorly now. Although I think it seems that there's a little bit of a critical resurgence. Maybe people are kind of coming around on how like very silly it is.
Yeah. I don't think it's that bad.
No,
I don't
I
think it's that
don't.
bad
I think
either.
it's
I think
more
it's well-
enjoyable
I think
than
it's-
Batman Returns.
Yeah.
I think it's better plotted. I think the pacing is pretty strong. And I think
Yeah.
there's actually some really good moments. And I agree with you, Hannah, on Val Kilmer. I think he was an interesting choice for it, and I think he worked. He had the jawline for it. The costume looked good on him.
Yeah.
It was an extreme. This was the era of like extremely anatomically correct costumes, but he sold it. It was good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chiseled abs.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like in a lot of instances, Batman Forever towed a very tricky line that Batman and Robin then completely went over the cliff on. So, like, I think most of Batman Forever is sort of presented with a wink and a smile, whereas like Batman and Robin is more like punching you in the face.
They're just
repeatedly
mugging
until
at the camera the entire time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but real quick before you move on, I have to just bring up one scene in Batman Forever for fans of Chris O'Donnell. The scene where he does his own laundry in front of Alfred.
I think you mean fan of Chris O'Donnell.
What'd I say?
Oh,
you said fan.
Single fan.
I just single
geez.
fan. Yeah.
I really thought I said something inappropriate or something.
Oh, sorry.
How
He
dare you?
he karates his laundry dry.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
So good. Alfred's like, I'll take care of that, Master. Whatever. I don't know, even call him Master Robin.
Master
Dick.
Master Dick, yeah.
Master Grayson. But he's like, no, Alfred, I take care of myself. And he's just, oh man, he doesn't even use the dryer. He takes his clothes right out of the washing machine, kicks them around to like squeeze the water out,
right.
and
I
then like uses a
forgot
mop
about
to
that.
fling him on
It's very cool.
a clothesline.
Yeah.
It was, hey, and then this is the best part. He goes to leave the laundry room. He turns around, he looks at Alfred, and he winks. And he just walks out.
Yeah.
So good.
See, again, 13-year-old boy, I'm like, that's cool. That's how you
Yes.
do laundry. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like for our age group, I feel like that movie probably was a little more of like a. For a lot of us, I imagine that we saw that movie as like our first movie, like in the theater or seeing it when it came out.
It was a
because we
very early theater going experience that I remember. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't as like weird and cringy and inappropriate as the Tim Burton's ones were, I think in my mind.
The inappropriateness was kind of put on the top shelf because it was, but if you're a kid, a lot of it went over my head that I was surprised
Yeah.
at later. But I do remember like Nicole Kidman, like when Batman comes to her bedroom at night and she like walks up with the blankets held up over her chest. And like for Tyler, that was like, what is going on? Like I had no category for this level of.
Okay, I'm going to
like,
give you the
sexual
woman's
energy.
take on this. She was seeking it out. She wanted it. She was she was being
agree with that.
assertive. And then in the Batman movie, Batman Returns, it was just like awkward
I
dances.
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was like, yes, it was sexual, but it wasn't like, if I had like one of my kids watch any of those movies, which I wouldn't at this age, but if Piper was like 13 and she watched Batman Returns, I would like have to pause it like every 2 minutes to explain why that was wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would have been like if I were to like watch it with a 13-year-old girl, if I were to watch Batman Forever, I would not have to do that as much because it's overt, like we said, like it's obvious what's happening. It's not like uncomfortable. And I think that was an improvement from the first two. Maybe that's just society,
I think
evolving.
That's a good point.
We live in a society.
We do indeed, as they say.
So that kind of gets to that's our take on those. We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the Nolan trilogy because those have been talked to death, and I'm sure they've come up here many times.
Probably.
But I would say we're generally fans of the Nolan movies.
Yeah.
I just don't know what else to say about them.
Dark Knight Returns isn't very good.
I agree.
Because I recently rewatched it just like a year ago because I was really excited because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I rewatched it and I was like, oh, this is not great.
A lot of stuff really doesn't work for it. I think it's one of Nolan's weakest movies.
It's my least favorite of the three for sure. But
but the other two,
Begins,
obviously,
I think
are
Begins is even better in some ways. When I watched Begins again, I was surprised.
I
at
love
how much
that movie.
I enjoyed
That's a
it.
great movie.
Batman
Begins is
I remember
solid.
liking it. It's really good, and I think kind of forgotten because of how much of a game changer The Dark Knight was. But Begins is excellent. And I really like that movie. And we'll have more time to talk about. We'll probably go over all this again next year when the Batman comes out with Rob Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves. And I've got high hopes for that one. I think that there's still a story to be written there. That trailer came out, feels like 3 years ago, but solid trailer.
And obviously in Dark Knight, I think we're all saying is probably the best DC movie, right? Like, is that?
Yeah. It kind of feels like saying Abraham Lincoln's your favorite president. It's like, well, sure.
Right. Yeah.
It's well put.
But I think I think probably,
Yeah.
I wish I had a hotter take than that, but I do.
It's not, it's not really a hot take at all.
The best
Speaking,
one.
that's a theater going experience. I remember. So.
Yeah, that was. I would love to have another theater going experience like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that opening scene in Chicago, because I was living in Chicago at the time.
So was I. Yeah, I saw it at Navy Pier. I saw it at Navy Pier the opening night, and I've been living in Chicago.
And having
that
opening heist when they're like whipping around the skyline and stuff, I was just like, oh, this is where I live.
Even if the rest of the movie
I saw
had
it in
sucked.
IMAX too.
Yeah.
So loud. That scene with the guns, it was so you were like, oh my gosh, am I in a robbery right now? This is intense. His direction is really good. I mean, Christopher Nolan, people criticize him for maybe some of the intimate relationships he writes, like not always being very believable, but man, that man knows how to direct.
Yeah.
So
except for Tenet, but yeah.
I haven't seen Tenet, but yeah.
Yeah, neither have I.
Yeah.
We'll blame COVID on that one.
COVID. I think that's fair.
Hard to shoot a good movie.
during COVID. I think he should blame COVID on that movie, but
fair.
So we're getting a little short on time, but we need to have a little special conversation about all those animated movies because DC has a huge slate of for the most part direct to TV or now streaming services animated features that really they run all over the map in terms of the tone and direction and the voice cast and definitely the quality as well. Some of them I think are really quite good, and some of them are pretty forgettable. But a lot of them punch way above their weight in terms of what a direct to video animated feature has to be. So Hannah, you watched, and I don't think either Ryan or I have seen, you watched the actual anime one, Batman Ninja, that came out in 2018.
Yeah. And what's funny is I bought that the moment it came out. So I'm like, I need to see that. Because it just looks so the art looked really cool. And if you like anime, you will like it. It's definitely
basically
an anime.
Batman as a shogun, right? It's like Batman as a ninja.
Yeah. I mean, so it's I will just say this. It's not like an animated DC or Batman show in its essence. It's almost more of an anime show or movie with Batman in it, which I thought was fun. I wish the story was a tad more captivating. I think that's really my only negative review of that was I found the actual story to be a little lacking, but it is wild. The art is really cool. It is beautiful. If you love Miyazaki, if you love good anime, I think you'll really enjoy just watching it because it's such a special and unique, beautifully animated movie. But there is some holes. There's some parts of the story that I really didn't care for very much. Also, Selena Kyle's boobs are huge. So it's just obviously something you see in a lot of anime or Final Fantasy kind of stuff where whatever. Sexualizing. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, obvious criticism I could make on that, but it's there. And so if I can kind of give you a synopsis without spoiling anything, it is about him. He actually is in a time machine, and there's a lot of villains from Gotham involved in this movie, all of the main villains. And so a time machine, it takes him back to feudal Japan, medieval basically era. And it's about, so basically each region has, they take over the leadership there. And there's a Japanese word for that I will not even try to pronounce right now. And it's each kind of they're being lorded over by Poison Ivy, the Penguin, and a few other characters. And, Grog.
Grodd? Like the gorilla?
Grodd, yes.
Or,
Grodd.
Yeah,
Grodd is is one of the main characters.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I was getting confused
well,
with
now
Grodd.
I'm in.
Yeah, I know.
Now I'm
right? I know. That's always
That's all I had to
what?
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously the Joker. But I will say that I think that you'll watch it, knowing you two, you'll probably see some issues with the story, but I think you will enjoy it because it's just super unique and kind of out there. But I recommend it. I think that some of the negative views are a little harsh on it. Yeah.
If it has Grodd,
cool.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you said Grodd, you had my curiosity and now you have my attention.
I figured that would interest some people. There's an army of 1 million monkeys, okay?
Oh, this sounds great.
We'll lead with that.
And with the hive mind. It's really cool. It's very cool. It's just that, and I mean, it goes out there. There's some scenes where it's like, am I watching Voltron? What is going on? It's like, it's deep into that. And I watched it on HBO Max, so I didn't see it was like the dub version. I would have really liked to have watched it in Japanese. Sure. I think it would have made it a better experience.
Does Bruce Wayne get his Gundam, or is that a spoiler? Can you not tell me?
I don't want to say too much about it because I feel like the ending is kind of like a big, like probably the better part of the whole. I don't want to say anything else. I feel like I said enough. So hopefully, if you're interested in it, you're going to see it. And if you're not, that's fine.
Yeah, my curiosity is peaked.
Yeah, I think you both enjoy it, and I think if anyone out there likes anime and likes comics, this is your shtick. Go for it.
Ryan, have you seen any of the animated? I don't even know if you have seen any of these.
My favorites are a little bit older. Sorry, there are two that I like. Lego Batman is really great.
Lego Batman is really great.
Yeah, yes, it's very silly. And I think Lego Movie 1 is probably the best of the Lego series, but Lego Batman's great.
Will Arnett, so great.
Will Arnett,
he's great in it.
Is great as it's very funny, and it ends up being pretty sweet too. Great movie. Yeah.
I think Teen Titans Go to the Movies is really good, which I think I've talked on this podcast before about my love for Teen Titans Go. My son went through a big phase with it for a while, and I was delighted because it's extremely funny.
My kids love that, but then they also try to like jump off the furniture whenever they
watch that's the problem we found
careful.
too is we have to limit the Teen Titans time because they also like that show also has like a plethora of fart and poop jokes, which I like think are very funny, but then the kids just go like that's all it is for the next like 3 hours.
Charlie must go bananas for that. I can totally.
Oh yeah, it's That's cute. But yeah, then older stuff. I think so. We just said that Dark Knight is the best like DC movie, but I think the second best actually is Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which like came out kind of at the peak of the animated films and was a theatrical release. And I remember I also was not allowed to see that in theaters because it was too dark.
When did it come out?
Like 1994.
It came out around the same time as Forever did, and
so
it was really
Batman.
Was really overshadowed by it,
Yeah.
and I think the idea is that its box office was hurt because everybody was watching was going to Forever, and nobody wanted to see Phantasm, even though Phantasm is the better movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I took my son to it a couple years ago when he was 3, and he was a little freaked out because it's kind of scary.
It gets a little scary,
Yeah, but it's really good. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend checking it out. I think it's on HBO Max. And then I also really love Batman Sub-Zero, which came out a few years later, was direct to video, but is similar to the Batman animated series. And then I love Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker.
It's great.
Which I think was like it got all the press because it was like the first PG-13 animated movie. But it's really good. If you haven't seen that, I heartily recommend that as well.
I'm a fan of the Batman Beyond franchise in general. It sounds like such a stupid idea on paper, like extreme teen Batman, but Paul Dini really made it work. He really sold it. It's a really good character.
No, I love that series growing up. That was a great series, and I wasn't even a comic reader. I wasn't into any of that, but I remember like turning on the WB and watching Batman Beyond for the first time and like being utterly captivated. That was a great show.
Great.
It's a weird. It was again another one that punched way above its weight and did not have to be as good as. Well, we can do a series of Batman Beyond at some point. Return to the Joker. It's really good. The only other one that I would add to that, and this is a very weird one. I think I talked to you guys about it offline last week. But you can watch on HBO Max. It's Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a crossover movie the reason I want to talk about this one is because I think that is a very at a time when people are really pushing for Batman to be darker and edgier, and he's the serious superhero and the more adult one. The Ninja Turtles crossover, it's not a given that is going to, anyone's going to watch it at all. Everyone's going to green light it. But this movie has a really difficult line to walk between the very goofy Ninja Turtles and Batman himself, and where the movie's tensions and really where its successes lie is in playing both of these characters to their strength. Batman and Nightwing and Batgirl, who are all in this, remain very serious, very grown-up characters. And the Ninja Turtles remain the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they find a lot of really great character interactions in this. It's a movie that is really fun and much better than it has to be. You can absolutely, your kids can watch it. And I was by myself one night. I just wanted to see why anybody had decided to do this. And I'm really glad that I did, because it was very fun. And it's something that I kind of wish some of the Batman like theatrical features would get back to a little bit, is owning the superhero side of Batman and just letting it be like introducing sci-fi elements into it and letting that be a silly part of it. It's a worthwhile it's an exercise that ended up paying off pretty well, I think, for them. Worth watching.
Well, it sounds fun.
I'm excited to have like one of those animated series where I feel like my kids can watch it with me without them bouncing off the couch like with the times go. So
it's one of the perks of Batman is the character is so malleable that he fits into a samurai. Like he can be in an anime about ninjas, and he can be in Ninja Turtles, and he can be a Lego figure. Like I think that's part of the enduring appeal of the character is when you just try to box him into the Christopher Nolan, exclusively the Christopher Nolan cookie cutter mold, which he can do, and he works there, and he's very good, but that doesn't have to be the exclusive domain of him. There's a lot of possible iterations, and I think it's fun when they push him outside of that a little bit. I'd like to see more of it. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I think that is all that we are. I think we're already a little bit over. The producers are gonna yell at us, but we're doing okay. Thank you so much for listening to Cape Town, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter at Cape Town Pod, and we're on Facebook as well, like the Cape Town Podcast. If you subscribe, and I hope you do, on Apple Podcasts, I hope that you give us a good review. I'm seeing people come through with those, and I appreciate that. We could use more of them because they mostly just for an ego boost. They make us feel really good.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody. So I appreciate all the comments and interacting with people online has been really fun this week. So thanks for doing that as well. We will be back. We'll be talking about Loki and getting ready for the Disney Plus series here. So join us for that next time. And we'll see you next week. I'm Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Hannah Mezzell.
And I'm Ryan Hamm.
No need for thanks, citizen. We will see you next time.